Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into something pretty fascinating. How much can just placing our hands in certain ways actually affect our health, especially in an emergency? We're focusing on Siddha Digit Poses SDPs. These are specific hand positions. And our source material, which comes from a Dr. Shanthini, makes some pretty big claims. Claims about immediate support, like boosting oxygen, or even helping stabilize the heart during, well, critical moments. So our mission today: let's unpack the facts and the evidence presented in these sources. How are these simple poses supposed to work, especially when things get serious?
Right. And it's probably best to start with the basic idea because the source suggests it's rooted in something quite simple: instinct. Think about, like the analogy they use, being really, really cold. What do you do automatically? You clasp your hands, right? Squeeze them together. It's your body trying to generate heat. Just pure instinct.
Ah, okay. So it's not some mystical thing. It's starting from a basic physiological response.
Exactly. And that natural reaction is kind of the foundation for these learned SDPs.
So how does that connect to a specific pose? You mentioned the lung care SDP earlier for heat.
Let's look at that one first, the one for generating warmth. The source describes it like this. You take one thumb, doesn't matter left or right, keep it straight, then you clasp all the other fingers tightly together. And importantly, you press your palms against each other really firmly. So firmly they become airtight.
Airtight palms, okay. And holding that position, what's the reported effect?
The claim is that this pressure, this airtight seal, generates heat right there inside the palms. And it's not instant body-wide heat. The source says you need to hold it consistently, maybe 30 to 40 minutes.
30 to 40 minutes, that's quite specific.
It is. And after that time, the generated heat supposedly spreads throughout the body. It's framed as a way to sort of harness internal heat regulation using just posture.
You know, what really struck me from Dr. Shanthini's notes was this idea that in really extreme situations, people sometimes make these shapes, these SDPs, without even knowing they're doing it.
Exactly. It links back to that instinct idea.
So learning the poses consciously is like taking control of that innate protective mechanism, making it reliable when you really need it.
That seems to be the core argument, yes. Conscious practice for predictable support.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's move to the really high-stakes claims then. Using these during actual emergencies, the source mentions heart issues, palpitations, fibrillation, chest pain, even cardiac arrest. That's serious stuff.
Very serious. And for those situations, there's a specific pose mentioned, the Heart Care SDP. Now, the claim around this one is, well, it's quite extraordinary. It suggested that holding this pose during a severe episode might actually prevent the heart muscles or blood vessels from collapsing.
Whoa, hold on. Preventing physical collapse of heart muscle. That's a massive claim. Does the source explain how a hand position could possibly exert that kind of mechanical control inside the chest? What's the mechanism?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the source material doesn't really offer a standard Western medical explanation, like nerve pathways or blood flow changes. It leans more towards concepts of energy flow and stability. The evidence cited is primarily anecdotal, based on real-life case reports.
Case reports, so stories of people using it.
Essentially, yes. It notes numerous instances where patients experiencing severe chest pain or what they believe was a cardiac event managed to hold this Heart Care SDP. And by doing so, they reportedly felt more stable, more comfortable, until they could get proper medical help.
Okay, so it's less about a cure and more about stabilization, buying time during transport.
That seems to be the practical takeaway from those accounts, yes. Maintaining stability during that critical window, it buys time.
Right, that frames it differently. More immediate intervention support, not a replacement for medical treatment. Okay, let's pivot then. Back to the lungs, specifically oxygen. That's critical in almost any crisis. We touched on a lung care SDP for heat, but the source mentions another one specifically for boosting oxygen levels, right?
That's correct. And it's important to differentiate. The first one used a straight thumb and airtight palms for heat. This second lung care SDP, the one aimed at oxygen, involves interlocking all the fingers tightly, but still keeping one thumb straight.
Interlocking all fingers. Okay, that feels different, more closed off. And the claimed effect time. Is it also long, like the heat one?
No, actually, this is where the claims get much faster. The source suggests immediate improvements in lung oxygen levels, like after holding this interlocking pose for just 2 or 3 minutes.
2 to 3 minutes. That's incredibly fast compared to the 30-40 for heat.
It is. And this is where the discussion shifts a bit from purely case reports towards some external research mentioned in the source. Specifically, a study conducted at the Indian Institute of Technology, IIT, in Chennai.
IIT Chennai. Okay, that sounds more formal. What did that study look at? What did they find?
Well, the IIT study reportedly focused precisely on measuring physiological changes while holding this interlocking lung care SDP. And they apparently confirmed measurable increases, not just in heat, but specifically in oxygen saturation within the lungs.
And the timing in this study, did it match the 2 to 3 minute claim?
The study's time frame was a bit longer for confirmation. It found significant measurable increases within about 20 minutes of holding the pose.
20 minutes. Still pretty quick for a measurable physiological change from just holding your hands a certain way.
Exactly. So while the initial feeling might be quicker, the research cited points to confirmation around the 20-minute mark.
That link to institutional research definitely adds a different layer to the claims. And wasn't this used practically recently?
It was. The source explicitly mentions the COVID-19 pandemic. When people were struggling with respiratory issues and low oxygen levels at home, apparently many patients found relief using this specific lung care SDP to help boost their oxygen saturation while isolating. It became a sort of practical self-care tool.
Right, a real-world application during a major health crisis. Okay, so we've talked about emergencies, heart, lungs, immediate crisis stuff. But what about the bigger picture? For someone listening who deals with maybe a long-term chronic condition, does the source suggest SDPs are useful there too?
Absolutely. The source material makes it clear that this isn't just about emergencies. It describes Siddha Digit Poses as a whole system. There are apparently many different poses, each designed to target specific body parts or address different conditions. It goes way beyond just circulation and oxygen.
Okay, so what kind of long-term conditions are we talking about?
Well, the claims cover a pretty wide range, from relatively mild things like chronic joint pain, which affects so many people,
Yeah.
all the way to quite severe and chronic diseases. The source even mentions autoimmune disorders.
Autoimmune. That's significant because often there aren't straightforward medical cures, right? It's about long-term management.
Precisely. And that's where SDPs are presented as potentially helpful. The idea seems to be twofold. First, maybe helping manage symptoms directly like pain or inflammation in joint issues. But perhaps more significantly, they're presented as supporting the body's own healing processes. By targeting, let's say, energy pathways linked to specific organs or systems, the claim is they help the body find balance again, which is key for systemic problems like autoimmune conditions, or even, the source suggests, supporting the body alongside conventional treatments for things like cancer.
So for someone managing a chronic illness, the takeaway isn't just use this in a crisis, it's presented more as a consistent practice.
Yes, like a tool for ongoing self-management. The suggestion is that regular, correct practice of the right SDPs could help manage symptoms and support the body's overall healing efforts. And importantly, it gives patients a sense of agency, something they can actively do themselves at home to support their health.
Right. That element of self-care and control is often really important for people with chronic conditions.
Exactly. So we've summed up the source's main point. Siddha Digit Poses are positioned as useful both for immediate emergency aid and as a supportive practice for long-term serious health challenges.
Okay, let's just quickly recap the key bits we've pulled out today. We started with that link between instinct, like grabbing your hands when cold, and these learned poses, sort of formalizing instinct. And the timing claims were interesting, 30-40 minutes for the heat generation pose,
Right.
but much faster effects claimed for oxygen, potentially within minutes, with that IIT study confirming measurable changes within 20 minutes.
Correct. The distinction in timing and mechanism for different poses seems important, according to the source.
For me, the really compelling thread through all this is that idea of harnessing something innate.
Yes, taking something the body does automatically for protection or survival and turning it into a conscious, intentional practice to support health, whether it's during an acute event or over the long haul with chronic illness.
That idea, conscious control over innate responses, really makes you think, doesn't it? It brings up a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over. Consider those other small instinctual things your body does under stress. Maybe you clench your jaw or curl your toes or make a fist without even thinking about it. What if those are also kinds of primitive protective postures? And what could we potentially achieve if we learned to consciously notice, maybe modify, and use those physical cues for immediate internal support? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.